to call upon our panel discussion. Engineer Ndlovu from ZESA, Engineer Bell from Yangani Renewable Energy, and Mr. Mazambani back to the panel to speak on why net metering is so great and why it's so efficient. Our facilitator will be Engineer Mhlanga from Soltrain. May we please give our panelists a round of applause.
Good afternoon. Afternoon. We seem like to have met again here with my colleague. Where is Engineer Mazambani? Oh, you've put in a replacement. That was a good one. Thank you very much. As we've been hearing, ZERA has been going around engaging with the stakeholders on net metering. I think from the last presentation, they've been in Bulawayo and they've been in Gwero. So taking advantage of our presence here, let's solidify and hear any other comments, questions that might have been missed when we were coming in Gweru, when we were in Bulawayo. So before you ask and comment, I'll invite my colleagues engineers to give their comments on net metering, what they think, and how they support it, how they recommend some improvements, or if need be. So we'll start from the extreme right. Bill, thank you.
Thank you very much. So I was part of the team who installed one of the first domestic net meters in Zimbabwe, and it was a fantastic experience. I think we are leaps and bounds ahead of most countries in terms of net metering, and it's working very well. I think the main issue that I want to drive is that the incentives for people who want to do net metering. When you have clients who come and ask you, what is net metering? Should we do it? Is it feasible? You really have to try and persuade him, because your mind thinks as an engineer, you know the benefits, but trying to convince people that they need to pay for a meter, they need to do the application, and what's the payback? That is the challenge that we face. An experience I had in the UK was they had renewable energy feed-in tariff incentives, and they had them in bands. So for a specific time, like 6 months, they would say the rate is crazy. It's like 1.2 to every kilowatt hour you export, you get 1.2 back, and you get it in currency as well. And the company I was working with at the time, we couldn't sleep because we were just doing installs back to back. Everyone was trying to get net metering for the reason that the incentive was very good. The grid availability was almost 100%. So that's another thing to remember, is that if we have load shedding, you obviously can't net meter, and that's an issue. And the third point, which is the most important, is that they were guaranteed that rate for the next 10 to 20 years, depending on what tariff they got. All these points made it a no-brainer option for clients to then opt for paying for the meter for net metering, getting the right inverter that can send power back to the grid. These were all very great incentives, and I would like to see those implemented in Zimbabwe as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Bell, for that input. I think it was well articulated, giving examples of where it's been applied and how we can motivate, especially if you are a producer. You want to get more clients, and you need to convince your clients, and you want it easier for them to be able to uptake the technology and the process. Engineer, you're next.
Thank you. My name is Engineer Ndlovu, and I'm from the utilities at ETDC. And what I would like to say from a utility perspective is that net metering is real and is here. I may want to probably speak to the numbers. So far as a utility, we have connected 124 clients who are already participating, who have been commissioned for net metering. And we are getting up to 5,200 megawatts, which is about 5 megawatts, slightly more than 5 megawatts, now connected to the grid. And we're expecting a bit more this year, given that we are going to be running a promotion shortly on the connection fees. We now have the smart meters that we didn't have in the other years, and we now have the smart meters, and so we'll be running a promotion where we'll be reducing drastically, almost to zero, the connection fees or the participation fees for net metering. So on that note, I would just probably encourage each and every one of us who are here, who are to come and enroll and participate in net metering. There are only two forms that are filled, that is the ENM1 form and the ENM2 forms. You need to fill those two forms and you'll be enrolled to net metering. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Ndlovu, for that. We're hearing the service providers, the utilities, making the platform easy for us, even giving us a subsidy, a promotion, he calls it, for us to jump in. So as those who are putting up, with Jinko supplying the panels for us in our home systems, we can easily jump onto this train that is moving. Now to my colleague, please go ahead, Engineer.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Mangarai Ndovorui, Engineer Electricity with Zera. I would like to mention that since the first promulgation of the net metering regulations in 2018, there were some inputs and feedback that we got from the market, from the consumers. And if you look at the initial statutory instrument, there was a cap in terms of the capacity that you could install and participate on net metering, and that was 100 kilowatts. But we're encouraged by the feedback that we got from the consumers to say 100 kilowatts is too low a capacity. So that capacity has been upped to 5 megawatts. So you can actually put up a system of 5 megawatts and be able to participate on net metering. The other interesting fact or figures that we are, which help us in terms of net metering, is you look at the importation numbers of modules into the country. In 2020 alone, we had about 50 megawatts of imported capacity in solar modules, which means that that's a capacity that we have within our premises that can actually interface onto the grid and be used on net metering. And these are modules that are coming through the formal channels. There are other modules and products that come through the informal channels. And as a regulator, we are also then seized with the task of ensuring that the products that we are getting onto the market conform to the required standards. So we have been working with Standards Association of Zimbabwe to actually come up with standards in terms of modules, in terms of inverters, in terms of charge controllers that can actually be used in the solar PV system. So we'll be moving in the format that we have done with inefficient lighting ban. First, having these products being put on the CBCA platform so that we actually ensure that all these products that are coming into the country do conform to the standards that we want. I think the concern that usually comes from the market are the products that we are having on the market, value for money, are they compliant? So that's one way we are going to do that. And as the regulator, we are then going to go onto the market and ensuring that the products that you find on these shelves do also conform to what we require and what is required by the standards into the country. So these are quite encouraging figures, and there is an opportunity for all of us to participate on net metering. If you look at the thrust in terms of decarbonizing the energy sector, the focus has been in terms of the generation, which is the supply side. But here is an opportunity for us as consumers to then also participate in terms of energy generation. So if our net metering is coming from the supply side of energy generation, not only are we decarbonizing electricity supply, but we are also inherently reducing the losses in terms of transmission and distribution. So net metering does benefit both of us as well as the utility. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. Thank you for that presentation. We heard from the client, satisfied first clients. Now we are back to the questions and comments. I won't question myself. Rovi, my colleagues, shall I use mine? Okay, just to make it fast, I'm told I'm only 8 minutes left.
This question is from the gentleman from Zera. So we have participated strongly with the net metering program. I think we have 35 of our clients on the net metering program and several commercial users. Obviously, this is a new program, and we have been spearheading trying to get the first above 100 kilowatt net meter. We've got 3 that have been in the process for almost 9 months now. It's a very, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done, coordination between us and you to speed it up. I think we spent 5 months with Emma doing that program, trying to get the Emma, what's it, EIA certificate for it. That was quite a long process. I think it was 5 months. The documentation has been in at Zera for about 3 months now. We're still waiting for our 3 licenses before we can even approach ZETDC to have the commercial net meters installed. This has come at quite a significant cost. What efforts are there going to be made by Zera to speed this process up and reduce cost, because we're reaching the $10,000 mark per commercial net meter installed. This is to do with the environmental impact assessment and all the associated fees, not to mention our man hours. So we just want to know how we're going to be able to get this to happen smoother.
Just make your questions short.
Sure. I'm Olaf Smythe, Sebastian's dad. I run Penelonga Energy and help him with some aspects in solar energy. He took some of the questions out of my mouth. Since we've got captive here, the PS, Dr. Ziuku, who's a board member at Zera. We've got the CEO of Zera. I've got my second question, which I'll just go first. Board meetings of Zera, why don't we have them 6 times a year so we can push through projects quicker? It takes forever and a day. I've been working for 5 years to get 4 hydro IPPs out. I've got them, but it's taken me a long, long time. The first question was, Seb was covering it, but why are we giving Emma a free lunch for these net metered commercial projects, which we've done several around 200 kilowatts, in the customer's own premises? Why do we need Zera to now delay us another 4 months and take money off us? What is the reason for that? These smaller projects, surely they should be fast-tracked. Seb was talking about it, he took the words out of my mouth. Surely you should have a side panel to just push them through quickly. We have customers waiting, we are able to do the work, let's get on and do the work. Let's not delay things unnecessarily. Thank you.
Good afternoon. On a related subject, it is power banking. for capacities, I think large capacities. And we are understanding that the charges are like 20% of the energy that you push into the grid when you want to draw it. So you lose 20% of your capacity plus, VAT and things like that. Between the utility and the regulator, how are we arriving at those charges? We really find them exorbitant, and they are not promoting the intended effect, of being able to, bank some more energy, and which is obviously beneficial for everybody. Thank you.
I'll ask the question. The colleague from Zera, would you want to reply or?
Okay, thank you. I have 3 questions. The first is, when will the accounting and charges for net metering be implemented and working? The second is, will the early movers in the net metering space be afforded the same benefits that may happen from now going forward? And lastly, to Joey's points from is this working? There we go. To engineer Nyachoe's points from earlier, being able to offset units that have been credited through net metering at a different location to where it was generated, as well as I'm happy to hear that the meter and connection fee costs will come down, because that was also quite a big stumbling block for very small, say, domestic systems of 5 to 10 kilowatts. The cost of the bidirectional meter could be offset by the removal of the normal prepaid meter. And then for customers that are, or domestic customers that are generating enough to cover their own domestic use, such as myself, I won't be able to net meter because the excess that I have, say in the afternoon, could be pushed into the grid, but I'm not a net consumer of energy. And again, to engineer Nyachoe's point would be either to credit it at a different location or to be able to redeem those credits for cash. Thank you.
So, my name is Sami from Jinko, and my question goes to Zera. My question is, as an OEM, when you mention that value for money in terms of technology and equipment, how can we collaborate in terms of making sure that we reduce or we control counterfeit products in the market? Thank you.
I think I'll give the colleagues from Zera. Are you able to start? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Allow me to tackle some of the questions that have been asked, and I think some of them were directly directed to the ministry and our board members. In terms of the timelines, I think the projects that actually necessitated the revision of the statutory instrument is on the cap were part of your projects, because when the initial statutory instrument was promulgated with a cap of 100 kilowatts, and your projects are actually exceeding that. So the transition and the revision was then done whilst you were already implementing the project. So in the first instances, your projects were not covered under net metering, but were then being licensed as independent power producers. So that's why the process took a bit of time, because the requirements for you to operate as an independent power producer are different from the ones that you are required to participate as a net metering participant. Simply because we are trying to make sure that net metering, we have got less stringent requirements so that everyone comes on board. We are not doing this on a commercial basis, so you don't want to create barriers of entry onto this platform. So that's why the net metering platform has been created, so that it allows even the end consumers to be able to participate on this. But your projects actually came on board when the framework didn't then allow those capacities. But I'm glad to mention that after the promulgation of Statutory Instrument 38 of 2022, those projects that are up to a capacity of 5 megawatts, they are now not required to submit requirements as those required for IPPs, which means there's less processing time that is required, there's less requirements that are required. What you simply need are the two forms that have been indicated by ZTTDC. The first one, an indication to say, I want to participate on net metering. They come and do the assessment and tell you the requirements for you to participate or to be on the platform. Then the second one is then the application, which then states what you need to do and the payment, and you're on the platform, which is totally different from applying for an independent power producer license. So already there's something that has been done in terms of reducing the timelines to participate on net metering, as well as the requirements. You don't need to spend even the application fees. They are quite reduced in those instances. There is a difference between power banking as an IPP or as a commercial entity and net metering. Power banking, you actually negotiate with the utility, and these conditions are not predefined. Under net metering, we've already predefined the conditions that you are required to adhere to in terms of exporting your power to the grid and the importation of the same power back to your premises. So those parameters have already been defined. I think Mr. Utezi tried to indicate that for domestic consumers, if you export 10 units, you are required to then retrieve back 8 units. So there is 2 units that is then credited to the utility to allow them to perform operation and maintenance of the infrastructure that you're actually utilizing to be on the net metering platform. For maximum demand consumers, we are talking of 15% retention by ZTTDC. So there's a difference between domestic consumers and commercial entities. The current legislation in terms of net metering is there to incentivize consumers to participate on net metering. We have seen that there are other avenues going forward which we might need to then study and see how best they can be implemented, as has been indicated by Engineer Nacho. The issues of virtual net metering, you have your units accumulated at one point and then credited to the next point. But we need to first ensure that the current arrangement where there's just energy trading is very much feasible and implemented, and also to see the capacity of the utility being able to then pay for the energy that has been banked with the utility. So those are some of the issues that we then need to look at before we actually move on to the next stage of promoting net metering, which will then have the monetary benefit coming back. But also to say we have not blocked consumers or investors who want to participate as independent power producers. So this is a gap to actually allow other end consumers to be able to generate their own power and sell to the grid. Thank you.
Thank you for that response. I think it clears up the air. Maybe I think you can do a bilateral after the presentation just to get clarification. I think to the ministry, maybe you could comment, respond.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to respond. Maybe before I do so, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our minister who has just joined us. He's looking very casual, so I'm sure you didn't even see that's him. But he's here with us. Honorable Minister, you're welcome. And then the question which came up, I think some of the issues have been attended to by Zera, but I think the key issue which came up is about EMA. If we go back to the renewable energy policy, it's very clear on page 31 that environmental impact assessments, R&E project need to undergo environmental impact assessment prior to implementation as per provisions of the Environmental Management Act of 2002 and the statutory instrument. But as projects have minimal or no environmental impact or positive social impact following concessions shall be provided for projects with installed capacity of less than or equal to 5 megawatts, which is also our threshold for net metering. The EIA process shall be relaxed. That's what the renewable energy policy says. I think we'll then need to go and engage further with EMA. We have already written to them to get their implementation progress of the renewable energy policy, which includes the relaxation of these, especially for less than 5 megawatt capacity. And we take it that for some of these projects, they would have already had an EIA, so there should never be another EIA for just connection and for net metering, especially those which sit on rooftops. But it then also says that the projects with installed capacity for more than 5 megawatts, the approval shall be completed within a period of 30 days from submission of the EIA report, and in case of delays beyond 30 days, deemed approved, approval shall be provided by the ministry, provided the EIA has not been rejected. So there are certain provisions which the renewable energy policy provides for. If they are now a challenge, we need to then engage, and I'm happy with this feedback, because we need that to be part of our resolutions to ensure that, as provided for in the policy documents, the renewable energy policy, there's compliance also from other parties. And it will be also interesting to know how much are they paying for these EIAs for net metering. Because it doesn't make sense that if you are not net metered, you you don't need an EIA. If you are now net metering, you need an EIA. I thought it is more the ZETDC grid impact which should be more critical in this case, which is what will allow for connection to be viable or not possible.
Thank you, PS, for those comments. I think they do now clarify a lot of questions. And I think the bilaterals that will be needed will be settled down. Oh, yes. There's still the question on frequency of ZESA board meetings. Zera.
Thank you. I think there's that one, and there's also the reduction in counterfeit, which I think you can tackle. The one on board meetings, I think we are encouraged through the Public Entities Corporate Governance Act that we minimize the number of board meetings. But however, what we have resorted to doing to ensure that no projects are unnecessarily delayed is that we take applications for projects to the board through round robin. But I also would want to point out that the applicants should also, make sure that the applications before the authority are fully compliant. Because at times the delays are due to applications which are not fully compliant. Therefore, there will be delays. But whenever we have assessed through engagements with the applicant, we always take matters to our board through round robin. But the scheduled quarterly meetings, we're going to stick to those so that we don't become foul of the law in terms of having too many board meetings. But issues are taken to the board through round robin if need be. Thank you.
Okay, I think two more questions. There was one on early movers. Any contribution to early movers coming from the back there? For those who did net metering earlier, are they going to benefit from any subsidy or something? I think there was a question like that.
Yeah, the announcement that we are going to make is a promotion, which is most likely to run for the next 12 months. So this is really a promotion that is going to be taken by those that are going to be ready for the in the next 12 months. So I don't see that going to be applied in retrospect. It's going to be those that are going to be coming to apply and enroll within the period of the promotion.
Okay, thank you. Then other question from Jinko, from Sam, said value for money and protection for low quality products coming to the market.
Yes, thank you very much. I think, yes, it's a cause for concern in terms of counterfeit products. As the regulator, what we have done, which we hope is going to bear fruits, is already we have developed standards in terms of modules that we expect to be on the market. The next stage is the capacitation of the local laboratory, which is SAZ, to be able to then do testing of those products to ensure that before you even bring in your products, you bring in the samples and they are tested and they are seen to be complying to those standards. And apart from that, currently we are also then relying on regional testing facilities where they actually then, before you bring in your shipment of modules, you are then also supposed to bring in your certificate of compliance to the required standards that we have already set up in the country. We are also moving forward in terms of registration of renewable energy suppliers, solar PV distributors. So most of the players that you will find within this space are registered by ZERA, and you find that government agencies, they are also requiring that for you to participate on some of these tenders, you actually need that registration from ZERA. And as the regulator, we are then ensuring that the products that you are actually putting on the market, they are compliant to those standards that we have set. So we hope that the CBCA platform is also going to block some of these counterfeit products coming through the borders. And as the regulator will still be going into the shops, into the market to check this compliance of the modules to the standards. So we'll be happy to actually work with you to ensure that we do curb the issues of counterfeit products. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm done with the session. I would like to give, ask the audience. Oh, there's still one question at the back.
The question on when are the current net metering guys, who some of them go back to 2019, I think, or was it earlier, Dion? When are they actually going to be billed? And now we've heard they're not going to get any sort of top-ups for being early movers. Perhaps ZETDC would consider writing off anything that's owed to them because they haven't been billed. Engineer, any ideas on that?
Yeah, I was going to be surprised to leave this discussion without that question, because admittedly we still have quite some challenges in terms of our billing system. But be that as it may, we have just we are working on a workaround to make sure that you receive your bills. I think 80% of our customers are now receiving their bills on a monthly basis. There are still a few which we are still working on to rectify the challenge. So for your account, Mr. Makesi, we should engage bilaterally just after this to make sure that it is also resolved. I must admit that I am one of the few people who motivated for net metering to start even when we were not ready. The question was, do we start before we have a billing system? We needed to, our billing system was a conventional billing system, but we needed to start, and we say, let's get started and resolve the issues as we go. So yes, I think 80% is done, but we still have a few that are still having some glitches. It could be a technical communication issue with our smart meter, which is on site, and our head-end system, or it could be part of the billing issues. But we will deal with this one bilaterally, and we should be able to resolve. If there is any other one who is part of the 20% who are still, which we are still having technical issues, please come forward. We will get it resolved. But admittedly, yes, we still have some technical glitches, but 80% of it is now resolved, and the majority of our clients are now getting their bills on a monthly basis.
Thank you, Engineer. Thank you for that clarification. Sir Wilson, colleagues, engineers, thank you for that fruitful session. Just extend our thanks also to the peers and the colleagues from ZERA in terms of responding to the issues on net metering. I think we are ready to go. We can't go back. We have to go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen, for that very informative session. I learned a number of things, and I think it's going to benefit us a lot if we all join in the issue of net metering. We're almost at the end of our program today. I think I'll be the first to apologize. I've received a number of people asking for the program, but because of the changes that we're doing, we're playing it by the ear. If it caused any harm, I sincerely apologize. But from my view, I've captured your attention. We have captured your attention. My challenge only is there are some people who have not spoken. If it were in my power, I would really come with my mic and then just ask each and everyone who hasn't said anything to probably just greet us all. That's at the very least a very important act. So at this stage, I want to ask the Permanent Secretary. I'm sure she has a few comments to make and an introduction, and then from there, we close off today's program.
Good evening, everyone. We are getting to the end of the issues before the bride dinner. I would like to thank you for the lively deliberations and contributions which you have made. The summary of issues and resolutions of the conference will be presented later this evening during the dinner time. People have been taking notes so that we can agree what is it which we are going to take through to our principal, represented here by our Honorable Minister, who has come to join us. Unfortunately, he had to go and do a COVID test before that. And we would like to take this opportunity to welcome our Honorable Minister, who has taken the time to be here with us, and also appreciate some of the issues which he, as the head of ministry, will be able to take to cabinet where it's necessary, or will ensure that we implement, especially all of us who are the stakeholders under the ministry. I think the critical issue which we need, which as I was briefing him earlier, is implementation, implementation, implementation. We can't keep coming here, coming up with resolutions and not being able to implement. So let me take no much more time for comments, but like to call upon our Honorable Minister of Energy and Power Development, Honorable Jomi Soda, to come and address us and greet us at this point. Honorable Minister, come through.
Good evening to you all. I'm here to just greet you and to appreciate the importance that you have just attached to this conference. I was briefed that we have excellencies, ambassadors from Botswana and Namibia who are amongst us, who are attending this conference with us. Let me also acknowledge the presence of regional participants, delegates. We have come from South Africa, some who have come from Kenya and Angola, and to say you are welcome to Zimbabwe. I would also want to acknowledge the presence of our permanent secretary, who has been with you, I think, since her arrival at this conference. We also have in our midst heads of parastatals, CEOs from ZERA, the executive chairman of ZESA. I'm told he was here and he has just left to go to the power station, but I'm pleased that ZESA is well represented here. Also, RIA, which is here with us from the independent power producers. We have just been given a few, but there might be many of the independent power producers who are attending this conference, but I've just been advised that in Nyangani is present. Also Central Grid and the Kupinga from the independent power producers. Then we also have our financiers. Old Mutual has just been mentioned, that they are here with us. We appreciate your presence. And also technology suppliers like Jinko, who has just been singled out from our polytechnics and universities. We are grateful to having you at this conference. Also developers of some projects, including the co-host to this conference, AMH Holdings. Had it not been them, otherwise this conference would not have been a success. So we thank you very much for your commitment to ensuring that this conference continues to be held, and it is now in its fourth year running, and we are very grateful about the commitment and support which is coming from AMH Holdings. I understand a lot of issues have been touched on, including the issue of the net metering, which I just heard as I was just coming through. It's an issue of interest, given that our power utilities experiencing challenges with power generation. You might be aware that there has been curtailment of power generation from Kariba Power Station as a result of inadequate water, and which started sometime last year in December. Of course, we are beginning to pick up with the water levels that are rising, and also the age of the equipment which is being used for power generation at Wange Power Station has always been an issue. But all the same, we are happy to advise and to, with the news that we received, that on the 20th, ZPC was able to synchronize one of its units, which is being constructed through the expansion project at Wange, which we think will be able to deal with the issues of the old aged equipment that is being used for power generation at Wange Power Station, and also that is going to allow for the rehabilitation of the old units. But this innovative way of bringing in the private sector, even through small contributions from the rooftops as net metering, is a welcome development and a welcome initiative from ZETDC, and we would want to implore ZETDC to expeditiously deal with the issues that are being raised here in this conference. We have had quite some customers, prosumers who are willing to send their excess capacities to the grid, but there have always been some questions, issues on payments for the excess capacities, and also the integration of facilities that can be that might be owned by one supplier. So I'm happy from the feedback that I got from the peers that there has been an extensive discussion with regards to net metering. Let me thank you all for making time to come to this important conference, which is, like I said, running in its 4th year. To us, the conference has become a mechanism for evaluation of implementation of our policies, especially the renewable energy policy. And even as you are discussing and interrogating some of the provisions, to us that's a healthy interrogation, because that's the only way by which we can have feedback from project developers, from a variety of stakeholders on how our policies would be performing. Our ultimate intention is to create an environment which is conducive for capital to flow into Zimbabwe, especially towards development of new projects into the country. When we developed the renewable energy policy, there were some incentives that were offered, but we continue to listen to the feedback that is coming from various stakeholders, so that at the end of the day, the environment becomes conducive for attraction of capital and for attraction of projects to be developed into the country. You might also be aware that last year in December, the Ministry of Finance made an announcement of the government implementation agreement, which will deal with some risks. One, the risk of expatriation of proceeds to external investors or providers of funding, and also the issue of currency convertibility, including even the financial condition, credibility of the power utility, which would be the off-taker. Now we have a facility which is, of course, still on trial, but we are able to come up with those interventions through interactions like the one that we are having today through this conference. So I want to thank you all for making your time to come to this conference. We continue as government to be looking at policies and other frameworks which are important as we endeavor to have an environment which is good to everyone. The power utility, the government, the independent power producers, develop funders, everyone must also find a space in the policies that the government is coming up with. As we speak, we still are in a process of putting together a policy on energy efficiencies, which I understand has also been a topic for discussion earlier on here at this conference. Also, we are putting together a framework on e-mobility. Unfortunately, it could not be finalized on time, but it has been our desire that we were going to launch it during this this conference. The issue of implementation continues to be our concern. We come here, discuss, and sometimes agree, but what we don't find is the actual implementation of the resolutions that we would have come up with. I know at the end of this conference, like we did in the past, we shall still come up with resolutions, but let me implore you and encourage you that as we will come up with resolutions, let us also implement them when we go back. If there are issues that might be arising even after this conference, the ministry is ready to receive those issues and matters that might be requiring our attention, and also our power utility will be available to deal with some of the issues. So let us implement our resolutions, especially with the view that we have to make a contribution in order for Vision 2030 to be realized. It cannot be realized without adequate supply of energy. Energy is one of the enablers for the achievement of the vision that is before us. So let me encourage you all to participate at this conference, and also together we come up with the resolutions, and at the end of the day then implement those resolutions. Tomorrow will be our great day for this convention, where we shall be joined by His Excellency the President. You might be aware that after our third edition of this conference last year, the President accepted to be the patron of our Renewable Energy Conference. So we invited him, and he shall be with us to give his address to us, and that should, to us, it shows how important this conference is, given that the whole President shall be with us to address us and to also encourage us and to also give his commitment in terms of the policies, in terms of the creation of a conducive environment for investments in Zimbabwe. So thank you very much, and let me once again welcome you all. We have made it to this conference, and I hope you shall continue to enjoy the conference, including your stay here in Victoria Falls. I thank you.